Welcome to all of you who've logged in. We will go ahead and get started. It's my pleasure to welcome you today. I'm Dr. Adrian Larson, and today's webinar is something kind of new that we haven't done before. This is hot off the presses stuff. And Kimberly, I got to tell you, this was a gutsy move for you because you're teaching things today that you learned how long ago?
Literally less than 5 days ago. Probably.
5 days ago. And in those 5 days, you brought those things home. Starting Monday, you were treating patients using these techniques, applying what you'd learned. You've got some cool results to share with us today. And 5 days later, you're already teaching this stuff because you're just that good. I'm amazed at what you've managed to put together so fast. And I'll be honest, I was thinking about it this morning when I got out of bed. That alarm went off, and I went, eyes wide open. It's webinar day. Did Kimberly get it together? And I came into work, and Kimberly showed me what she had, and I was blown away. We are in for a treat, folks. So a couple of things before we get rolling with Kimberly. Number one, if you're having any trouble with the reception, with the sound, with the video, then the best thing to do is reload your page, your web page there. Just hit reload or hit the little circle arrow button, and that usually will fix any problems you've had. Secondly, if you have a comment or a question, then over on the side of your screen, there should be the little chat window, and you can put in a chat. I see that there's a welcome. We have a lot of folks that are signing in and telling us who they are, where they're from. Thank you for that. And when you put in a comment, you can also tag the comment. You can either tag it as a question or as a comment. If you tag it as a question, we're a lot more likely to notice it. And that's why we do these things live. We want the interaction. We want the questions. And so please do that. And other than that, we are ready to roll. So I'm going to quit taking my time, and we got to get it over to Kimberly because she has great stuff. Ready? Go.
Okay. I am really excited. We have a full house of acupuncturists today, and they're from all over the world, and that is exciting. People ask me often where AccuGraph is, what countries are using AccuGraph, and we're finding it all over the world. I just need to know, Adrian, are you hearing an echo as I am?
I'm not hearing an echo. What I'm hearing is it keeps cutting out your sound. So try turning down the volume on your computer a little bit.
Okay. Is that better?
That's better on your voice. Can you still hear me?
How's that?
You sound good. Keep talking.
All right. If there is a problem cutting out, I'm sure you'll send someone in to rescue me. Can everyone hear me?
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Good.
Actually, I can't hear you. Are we good now?
Keep talking.
Okay. So just as a little bit of a background, I just returned from Jake Frakkin's seminar this last weekend, and this was not hosted by Meridian Technology. This was hosted by Jake himself. And I first started studying with Jake about 5 years ago, and recognized that he had an incredible gift in what he had to offer the AccuGraph users. And I learned a lot as a basic foundation for expanding my AccuGraph use. So this was quite the treat to be able to go back 5 years later and learn from him. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you my presentation here. Although Jake and I both have been using AccuGraph, we've both been AccuGraph acupuncturists for the last 5 years, there are a lot of things that have changed. Let's see. So I'm going to tell you what to expect from this seminar. First, I want to give a disclaimer. Jake absolutely taught some incredibly detailed information these last 3 days. In fact, I am anxious to take some time, months even, to assimilate, begin to put it all together and get it clear in my mind. What I'm sharing with you today are the differences from what I learned from him 5 years ago versus what I learned from him now. And there are a lot of new and different things. Jake has changed some of his styles of treatment. And then I just want to say that what I'm teaching you is the very simplified, minute version of what Jake had to offer. Like I said, it's going to take me months to think through this, solidify it, transform how I'm treating patients. But I can say this. I learned enough in the weekend that I could come home and immediately make some very quick changes and get extraordinary results. So I'm going to teach you a few of those things that I learned this weekend. And then at the end of the webinar, we're going to tell you how you can learn more. If you like what I'm presenting and you would like the opportunity to learn more, we're going to talk about that as well. One of the quotes that I have from Jake this weekend was, what I'm going to well, actually, this is a quote from 5 years back. So when I went back to my original notes, I thought it was profound that Jake taught me then. What I'm teaching you right now is my current understanding of acupuncture. Ask me what I think 5 years from now, and I'll give you a different answer. Absolutely. I mean, this is the theory that I live by, because we're always ever changing, right? We shouldn't be stagnant in our learning process. And I am absolutely amazed from what I learned 5 years ago to what Jake is teaching now. It really was, he's come so far. We've all come so far. And with the modernization of ancient Chinese medicine and different styles and techniques and treatment tools and devices, there are many things that are changing in our world. And I'm excited that Jake had this opportunity to share with me. I want to give you a little bit of a background. Many years back, for years and years, Jake has been an avid studier of Chinese medicine. He started out as a TCM, and he learned the basics of TCM, and then he was very drawn to Japanese style acupuncture. And he studied with many of the masters all the way through. And without naming all of the people that Jake studied with, I just want to say that there was one point in time when he studied the works of Manaka, and there was this complicated, extremely amazing treatment strategy that had to do with a lot of mathematical equations. They had to do with extraordinary channels and divergent channels, and Jake was fascinated by all of it at the time. But as a real life practitioner, he says, yeah, that is really good stuff, but nobody's got time for that. Nobody has time for all that thought process in the acupuncture clinic. So he continued to move forward. He became a master at pulses. He became a master at herbs. He became a master at treatment strategies. He became a master at being able to feel energy. He has a unique approach to muscle testing. And so he just continued to develop himself over the years. And 5 years ago is when we introduced you to Jake Fratkin in the AccuGraph world. And that is when he was, I'll get more into that, the things that I learned from him 5 years ago. But to make a long story short, he put that information that he learned way back when with this Japanese style treatment of AccuGraph, and he tucked it away. And at some point in time within the last 5 years, he found this secret little place inside AccuGraph that he clicked on a button and a light bulb went on, and all of the things that he had learned based on Manaka's treatment strategies was hidden in AccuGraph. So it's amazing that Manaka had the treatment strategies years back. Jake recognized them, thought that they were good. And then you bring Adrian Larson along, who at some point in time, as he was studying all of the different types of Japanese style acupuncture and putting the diagnostics into AccuGraph, he tucked this information in there because he saw it was valuable, and there it sat. And I'll talk more about that as we move forward. But so 5 years later, here we are, and things have changed. So, whoops. Let me just go back one more. So this weekend, I was able to study with, There we go. I was able to study with this incredible group of acupuncturists in Boulder, Colorado. It was exciting to rub shoulders with these folks because these are the AccuGraph users that I have known and loved in my time here at Meridian Technology. Many of these AccuGraph users have been around before me and have been some of the original owners of AccuGraph. They are already they already know the basics. They already have a basic understanding of electronic diagnosis. And they chose to come to this training because they wanted to become an expert, even more expert. Many of these practitioners have been to the trainings that we've had here at Meridian Technology in Meridian, Idaho. I've talked to many of them on the phone. They read our blogs, they read our articles. Now here they were all together in Boulder, Colorado. And this is the cream of the crop group. These are the ones I can now say you're looking at our most expert AccuGraph users right here because they are the ones who decided that they wanted to take everything to a next level. So my comment about not being stagnant, here's our group. So let's talk about what I learned from Jake 5 years ago. Here's a quote from Jake. There is no pulse diagnosis in the world that is better than computer diagnosis. Now I have to say that is a really bold statement. And that is a statement that if you share that in the TCM world, which I have, I've written articles about it. We've put it out there, we've thrown it out there, and you will have so many people raise the hair on the back of their neck going, how can computer diagnosis be better than pulse diagnosis? And that is the main thing that I learned from Jake that weekend. Quick synopsis, we started out the weekend and we were all feeling pulses, and he was telling us what we should be feeling and what we needed to feel based on tonification and sedation points. And then he'd come around and he'd re-feel the pulses that we were all feeling. And he'd say, no, you got it all wrong. And then he'd tell us what we were supposed to be feeling. And I remember being very frustrated and confused because I thought I was pretty good with pulses and I realized that I wasn't. And then he shared how AccuGraph is a very accurate diagnosis of what he has found in pulses in all these years, and that he trusts the graph and that that's what he uses. So that was my first aha with Jake Frakkin 5 years ago. Next, he taught me that TCM is not a root treatment, and that channel diagnosis is the absolute root treatment in acupuncture. He taught me how TCM has evolved over the years and how it became a conglomeration of many things, and it was very political, and that it has left out the theory of channel diagnosis. And if you treat the channel first and then move on to TCM, that you would get better results. Jake also taught me that there were many ways to treat the tonification and sedation points. So originally, as many of you know, I was the TCM practitioner and had a hard time really accepting the basic strategies in AccuGraph. The tonification and sedation points that AccuGraph recommended, sometimes they were points that I would never want to treat, like kidney 1 or heart 9 as a tonification point. And in my theory, as far as TCM, those are she cleft points. Those are for great extra conditions in the meridian. But from a Japanese style, when you do the equation and figuring out where the tonification and sedation points are based on the mother-son relationship, those are the points, and they're very effective points. But he also taught me that I could use, if I wanted to tonify a point, I could use the tonification point or I could use the source point. And he taught me that if I wanted to sedate a channel, I could use the sedation point or a she cleft point or a source point. So recognizing that I had choices and options, I had a little more creativity and I began to think outside of the box, and I began to trust the graph. Then he taught me that yin leads, yang follows. So to simplify an AccuGraph treatment, I learned to click on not the baseline graph, but the yin yang graph and look at the yin channels on the left and recognized that if I treated the yin channels, I could trust that the yang channels would balance themselves. And that was based on a book called Meridian Therapy by Shudo Denmai. And after I came back from Jake's seminar, I just absorbed that book. And let's see, hold on, we got a little technical thing going on here.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Yep. And keep the pointer off the middle.
Okay. So I just absorbed that book. I came back and I read the book and it made perfect sense and it changed the world on how I was thinking about AccuGraph. So obviously moving forward here, learning to think outside of the box. The next thing that I learned from Jake, from what I learned from Jake, when I came back and applied it in practice, I learned that if I utilize AccuGraph, the point treatment strategies in AccuGraph, using the tonification and sedation applications within the channels, that my patients began getting better twice as fast. So it's kind of good that I had a couple of years that I wasn't treating with AccuGraph, and then I did, because once I did start using AccuGraph, then I could absolutely see the difference. So those were the key things that I took away from Jake 5 years ago. And I've been teaching that. I've been writing articles. I've been teaching all of you those concepts since that time. So this time I learned something new. We've always been taught about the extraordinary channels. We've got the Reng, the Chong, the Du, and the Dai, and then the opposing Yin Chao, Yin Wei, Yang Chao, and Yang Wei, and using the mastered and coupled points in order to treat those channels. And those are the the 8 extraordinary channels with the 8 points that treat them. So what I learned in this seminar is that there are actually new extraordinary channels, and they have to do with the large intestine, the stomach, the liver, and the heart. So this was based, and I'm giving you a very broad overview, and you can study this deeper. If you want to study a book that gets into more detail about this, it's called Chasing the Dragon's Tail by Manaka. And I'm told that I haven't even dug into it yet because I've been busy getting ready for this webinar this week, but I am told that it's very, very deep and there's a lot of thought process into it, but that is the next book that I'd like to dive into. So having these additional extraordinary channels begins to put the body together in a whole different way. And what I learned, here are some basics. In fact, before I say what I learned, sometimes we get bored and stagnant in our treatment strategies. And in the last while, it's so interesting that I have begun experimenting, and this is before I even knew what Jake was teaching, before I even went to his seminar. I've been experimenting with using the original extraordinary channels, because I didn't know there were more, using those to balance the graph. And I treat a lot of complicated patients, and when things just aren't shifting quite the way I need them to, AccuGraph makes recommendations all the time. We tell you to treat the daimai if there's an upper body or a lower body imbalance. But I've been exploring a lot with the Ren channel and the Chong channel and even the Du when I am treating patients and getting good results on graph analysis. So I hadn't started writing articles about that yet, but I was recognizing changes. And then when I went to Jake's seminar this weekend, I was blown away because I found out that not only was I right on in treating, it actually comes back from a Japanese style of acupuncture, back from Manaka many years back. And he recognized that there was this quadrilateral way of looking at the body from a three-dimensional perspective. And if you treated the extraordinary channels, you got a full body balance. And he then created the master points for these other 4 channels. And one of the things that he was known for was muscle testing and testing which points were conducive for treatment. So interesting that this whole theory of muscle testing, which I have played around with over the years and Jake has taught for years, that's how these extra master points were chosen for the extra meridians. Here's what Jake has to say about the extraordinary pathways and the divergent channels. He says, if your channel is blocked because of trauma, the extraordinary pathways and the divergent channels are detours which help the body to continue to function, kind of like absorbing the extra traffic in a traffic jam. I love this. This really makes sense to me because when I show patients that a channel is blocked in AccuGraph and, you know, there's excess in this channel or a deficiency in that channel, and I click on the channel, I'm showing them the channel, I'm showing them the internal pathway, I'm showing them the muscular channel, and they say, well, so are you saying that my lung isn't going to work if this channel is blocked, or my kidney isn't going to work? And our bodies have this beautiful way of recognizing that we have blockages in the primary meridians, and then there are these other secret pathways which we are not showing pictures of in AccuGraph yet. I would like to incorporate that in, but we have these extra internal pathways which absorb the problem so that the body can keep functioning. And so when you have chronic conditions that have been around for a really long time, when you treat these extraordinary and divergent channels, then you're treating at a much deeper level. So here's a question that I get from AccuGraph users all the time. When I'm at a seminar or symposium, or if they call me on the phone and they go, hey, this AccuGraph thing looks really good. Can you measure the extraordinary channels? And
Kimberly, I'll add, we've been getting asked that for 12 years. People have wanted to measure the extraordinary channels, not realizing that you could get that from what it's doing. So you're not the only one getting asked that.
Exactly. So, where was I here? Okay, so we've been getting asked that question forever. My old answer when people would ask me that question was, no, AccuGraph can't read the extraordinary channels. And then I explained to them that the extraordinary channels aren't on the regular pathways, and they include a lot of points from multiple pathways. So there's really no way for us to do a measurement. And then I tell them, but when you measure the channel, when you treat the channels, that the extraordinary channels are being affected, which that is not a false answer. I would say that is a true answer, but it's a stagnant answer. So if we break up the stagnation and we take it to a new level, let me just tell you what my new answer is. My new answer is yes, AccuGraph does measure the extraordinary channels, and it also measures a whole lot more. There's this little button at the bottom right, left-hand corner of your AccuGraph screen, and you'll recognize these pictures. If you can see the first one is the baseline treatment. The second one is an advanced treatment if there are multiple points that you could use to treat the individual channels on the graph. The third one has to do with when a patient has come in multiple times and there are certain patterns and certain graph findings that show up over and over again, and maybe they didn't show up today, but they tend to have, let's say they tend to have an excess in the spleen, but today it's not showing up. This box here will help you to recognize that maybe you should treat it anyway because it's a common problem for the patient. You can balance the graph by treating the ear. and you can balance the graph by treating the back shoe points. But this little button here in the bottom right-hand corner, white arrows, if you click on this button, you actually can treat extraordinary, divergent, and left-right imbalances. So it not only covers the extraordinary, but more. And I'm going to show you how that works. So here's a picture of a graph. It's actually my graph. And if you'll recognize, it's the baseline graph. So it's showing hand channels versus foot channels. And the next thing that you want to notice is down in the left-hand corner of the screen where it says treatments. I'm going to blow that up for you. There's the divergent channel button. And if you click on that button, this is what shows up. So notice all the points there at the bottom. There's a whole list of points. And then the next thing that you would want to do was add those points to the treatment plan, and then they will all show up. And then they all show up in the screen like so. So I'm going to take these treatment plan buttons because, well, honestly, I'll tell you what I have told people about that button when I'm at a show and they'll go, oh, well, what is that button for? And I'll click on it and I'll show them, I'll say, you know, that has to do with divergent channels and using tonification and sedation. And it's really complicated and I don't know much about it and nobody uses it. And so that would be my typical answer, is that nobody uses it. And for the most part, I would say that's right. I've even asked Adrian, he'd say, yeah, there's a few practitioners out there who've asked for this type of treatment. So we've added it in. And like I told you earlier, Adrian had studied this theory of acupuncture and put it in. And then this is the secret button that Jake recognized in the last 5 years. So Jake clicked on that button and he started looking, and that's when the light bulb went on. He realized that, I'm going to take you to the next screen. He realized that this was a breakdown of the theories that he had learned from Manaka many years ago, the ones that he had put aside because nobody has time to do the mathematical equations on that. And it was just complicated. And yeah, that's a really great treatment, but it's too complicated. I don't have time for that in my practice. So Jake began exploring with this and pulling out his old notes and pulling out Manaka's book and incorporating it with a lot of other different styles of treatments that he uses. And here's what he found. So the first 4 points in this example, they're extraordinary points. And this includes, when we're coming up with the treatment plan for the graph, you may see the 8 traditional extraordinary, the 8 traditional extraordinary points, but it also has the 4 new channels in relation to extraordinary. So in this combination, there's a Sanjiao 5 and a gallbladder 41. Which is a diamide treatment, and there's a large intestine 5 and a stomach 40. And the large intestine 5 and stomach 40 are new extraordinary points.
Hey, Kimberly,
yes.
Can I throw something in really quick?
Please do.
I just want to tell you, when we first put this in AccuGraph, because you were right, this is the button nobody uses. This is the treatment style nobody understands. And when we first put this in AccuGraph years ago, I taught a seminar on this, and everybody still didn't understand it. And so I think it's delightful that Jake understood it. And then also the fact that you have taken it and broken it down, put that slide back up for a second.
Sure.
Broken it down into the 3 categories, the 3 ways that it treats. The thing that I wanted to point out, and you mentioned this earlier, so I'm just reiterating what you said, that you're dealing with a 3-dimensional treatment. You have the left and right, which obviously we've been doing that for a long time. But then you have the divergent channels, which, the divergences between yin and yang, or front and back. And then the extraordinaries, which is the differences between upper and lower. So by balancing top to bottom, left to right, and front to back, you end up with a three-dimensional balancing of the patient. And the way that you've divided it up on this slide, I think is absolutely delightful to show people that, yeah, all of those points that get stuck up there in that treatment plan, there is some rhyme and reason to why and how it's recommending these. And I know you're going to go through more of that, but I just wanted to say, hey, way to go. You're teaching something that I could never manage to teach. Back to you.
Thank you. And that is why Adrian is the genius. And it's the mathematical stuff. In fact, Jake and I are the same in that way. Like, yeah, the mathematical stuff, it all sounds good, but even I get confused left and right when I'm looking at my patient, or if I'm looking at the graph and then looking at the patient, and if I'm standing in front of them, if my right hand's on the opposite of their right hand, you know, it's that whole dyslexia thing. I don't know that I'm dyslexic, but I feel like I'm dyslexic when I'm looking at my patient. But I love that AccuGraph has laid it out for me. I've already learned to trust the graph. I know that the measurements are correct. You have to be good at graphing, and I am good at graphing, and most of you are good at graphing as well. And when you have a good graph, and you know, you can take this to a whole new level. So the extraordinary channels, here are some things that I kind of learned about these different aspects of what we're looking at here. So the extraordinary channels are the underlying system for the structure of the body. Manaka said that structural problems are best treated with the extra channels. And he said, he called it a beautiful combination of yin and yang. And then so he started out with the 8 extra, and then he expanded the system to include the liver, the large intestine, the stomach, and the heart. Divergent channels. I really didn't know a lot about divergent channels. In fact, even when I go back into the textbooks of what they taught me about divergent channels in school, they'll tell you where they go and how they're connected in the body, but not really how to treat them. So divergent channels start at the Hussey points in the body. So those are the points that are somewhere around the ankles and the knees. And then they move up the body, and then they join at the coupled channel, typically at the exit point or their coupled point. So when yin and yang pairs aren't balanced well, let's just say the lung and the large intestine, the lung and large intestine are not balanced well. If you will treat the divergent channel, then it brings those two channels together to work well in combination. And so if I can give you, and there's so much more study that I want to do about this, but here's a basic analysis. When energy is stuck in the extremities, treatment of the divergent channel brings energy back to the core organ system, which takes it to the bones and the marrow. Thus, divergent treatment is fantastic for people with chronic, deep, long-term constitutional imbalances. And so that's kind of where I've been at the next level in my treatment of patients. You've got that group of patients that you can get well fairly quickly. You've got that one group that you just a few treatments, musculoskeletal, it's a done deal. You've got the next group where if you work with their basic channel imbalances and they come to a new level, and then you have that next group that's just a little bit harder and you're not able to get through. And those seem to be the ones that I've been wanting to research and study more. And that's why I've been expanding to the extraordinary treatments. But now to add the extraordinary and the divergent is just amazing. So those two are the key ones that Jake taught about this weekend. The left-right imbalances, typically in AccuGraph, it has to do with the splits. And that is when the large one channel on one side is a big difference than on the other side. So when we see it in AccuGraph, we see it as a split if you were actually able to see it on the graph. And if you can see it on the graph, the typical treatment is the luo. But the truth is there are splits within every graph. I'm going to go back and show you this go back and take a look at the graph that we were just looking at. Okay, so if you were looking at my graph, notice there are no splits in that channel, but AccuGraph does the mathematical measurement to find the biggest differences between certain channels. So, you know, the heart channel is low, but there's a pretty big difference between it, and it'll take the differences between organ systems. I love the complication and mathematical equations that AccuGraph does that I don't have to do. And so AccuGraph takes that into consideration when coming up with that diagnostic treatment strategy. So even though no splits show up on the graph, there will always be generality splits within the channels, and the back shoe points can be used to balance those. So that is my quick analysis of the secret button that is inside AccuGraph. Adrian, did you want to say any more about the secret button? Not that it was a secret, but it was something I didn't understand.
No, the only thing I'll add is that keep going, because soon people will understand how to use that button and how to really get some cool results.
Okay, I'm moving on. Next, we learned about ion pumping cords. These ion pumping cords are pretty amazing. I had seen them before. I had heard of them before. I knew that some practitioners were using them more for a Japanese style of acupuncture. I knew they existed, but never learned them in school. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about what I learned from them. So before I move to the next slide, notice in the center between these, you've got the red and the black, and then you've got this little black thing that looks, that's in the center of it. That is called a diode. And that keeps energy, if you have a diode in the middle of a positive and negative wire, it keeps energy flowing only one direction. The black side of the ion pumping cord will pull energy out. So realize that we're not adding any of these wires are not like your typical microcurrent where you're adding electricity to the body to work with a blockage. This black clip will actually pull excess energy out of a channel. So if you put it on a channel that's excess, it'll pull energy out. It'll go through the cord, the direction that it needs to go because of the diode, and then you'll have the red side, which is clipped to a needle on a deficient channel, and it pushes energy in. This is fantastic for extraordinary vessel treatment, divergent treatment, and left-right imbalances. And it's a complicated system to come up with how to treat it if you're getting into it in great detail, but AccuGraph makes it easy because it literally tells you in your treatment strategy. Notice there were reds and blues on the treatment plan. And if you just always recognize that you put the red side on the red, on the point that's colored red in your treatment plan, then you're good to go. It's that simple. So I came back and I used this right away in clinic. I needed to see how it worked. And this is what my patient looks like with her ion pumping cords on her. And the patient experience was that here's what they were saying, hands down, throughout the day. Way more relaxed, pain resolved immediately, and the graph changed. Let me go back to the pain resolves immediately. I decided to try this out and not use my typical treatment strategies. I would literally just put the ion pumping cords based on the graph analysis with the focus, obviously, on extraordinary vessels first. And people who had headaches and neck pain and back pain, as they're laying on the table, they would say, wow, my pain is just going away. My pain is just going away. And I would leave them. You leave them for about 10 minutes. That's how long it takes for the ion pumping cords to work. And the pain would just resolve. So the next big question everybody wants to know, does it change the graph? So here are two example patients because I came back just over the weekend. So February 21st and February 23rd. The bottom one was the first graph treated for the patient, and the second one was the second. So that's all I did was ion pumping chords, and these are the graph changes that we had, because you don't want the patient to feel pain, and if you want to make your treatment strategies less painful, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's move on to the next one. So this one was feel the vortex. I've been feeling chi on the body for a very long time, and I've always known to, when I started out using my finger, I would feel the point and I would move my finger to find the right angle. And then I learned to use my needle and put it into the point. You can kind of feel a hole. And if you put the needle in and you're feeling that hole and you get it to the right angle, you're obviously going to get a better treatment. When you're using a laser and you're feeling the vortex and you're feeling the hole, you will get better treatment. The final thing is when you're graphing the patient and you're feeling for that point to graph, if you go with the vortex, you get a better treatment. I'll probably talk about more about this as we move on in time, but this was kind of a wow, aha to me, and I thought it was worth sharing. Next, Jake talked about painful treatments. Here's a quote. If you cause pain, you ruin the effects of tonifying the channel. It's okay if you're doing musculoskeletal work, but not for tonifying a channel. So when you are treating the when you are tonifying the channel and you're putting the channel in balance with that first original treatment, you don't want to cause your patient pain. If you get good at feeling the vortex, and if you get good at a Japanese style needling effect, try not to cause pain and you will get better results. After you've put those needles in and then you're moving on to other aspects of your treatment, and maybe you're going into the shoulder and you're doing some deeper needling, it's okay to cause pain then, but not when you're initially balancing the graph.
And I'll add, the first time I ever had a treatment from Jake Fratkin, I was amazed at how much he follows this, that he really doesn't cause any pain. And he actually talked to me about aggressive, heavy, harsh needling techniques, and that he really doesn't see a whole lot of value in doing that, particularly when you're trying to balance chi. So yeah, an important tip, because some techniques are quite aggressive and they're needlessly so.
Exactly. So that was just a eye-opening experience, knowing that I could come back and be even better in my practitioner work. And of course, he uses a lot of Qigong, and there are lots of ways that you could change the painful effect of a treatment just in how you breathe and using the vortex and everything else. So lots to learn there for all of us. Finally is root and branch. And you've heard me talk about this a lot, but the next level, 5 years later, when you're doing the root treatment, an extraordinary channel treatment works as the root treatment, and it will handle all of the internal disorders. So Jake will tell you if they've got digestive orders, if they've got lung problems, if they've got asthma, if they've got gut whatever they've got, your root treatment will handle the internal disorders. And then you want to do that first. And then the next one is where you handle all the leftovers, and that's your branch treatment. And that's where you handle the shoulder pain or the headache that's still lingering behind the eye, or whatever they're feeling at that moment. Then you can add more points immediately after you've put the initial treatment in for them to relax. You could go right into the branch treatment, and anything goes. What's your style of treatment? Do you do Dr. Tan? Do you want to use auriculotherapy? Do you do structural work? Do you use TCM? Whatever your knowledge is, it's perfectly acceptable. Whatever you're good at, you can take it from there. So that allows us to all have our extreme differences, and it's awesome. So I have one more thing that I learned from Dr. Fratkin this weekend, and honestly, it was surprising because it was a personal thing that I learned. So I always had tons of questions within class, and if something was going on with AccuGraph that somebody didn't know the answer to, Jake would say, Kimberly, tell us what you know. And then his quote of the day was, every time I teach, I learn something from Kimberly. And I just thought that was pretty amazing, and rubbing shoulders with all of these acupuncturists and hearing feedback and having them, I just recognized something about myself and my role in this evolution of Chinese medicine. And in the next graph here, so there's me. My role at Meridian Technology, I do a lot of the background development. I am the liaison between the practitioners. I'm the one who's going out there and hearing what you're doing in practice. I have a practice myself. I'm younger in the field of our medicine. Jake's been around for years and years and years. Do you think Jake needs to build a practice with AccuGraph? People just come to him. He's got a waiting line. I had to build a practice, and I'm out there teaching other practitioners how to build a practice, coming up with the creative ways on how to utilize your AccuGraph to build a practice and do all of that. So I recognized as I was sitting there, I am not the Adrienne Larson, the genius who put all this together, came up with the idea, recognized that this was an amazing tool for acupuncturists all over the world and how they could build their practice and how they could be better practitioners and the whole mastermind behind it all. And I'm not Jake Fratkin, who's the master. He's studied with the most amazing practitioners all for over years and years of experience. And he's rubbed shoulders with the master acupuncturist in Japanese. I at least get to rub shoulders with Jake, and who knows where my journey will take me beyond here. But I'm this girl who sits in the middle, and I get to work between the genius and the master. I get to travel and meet all of the acupuncturists. I get to help develop new ways. I'm the one who gets to go back to our guys who are engineers and say, this is what we need next. This is what is needed in our field. And I love my job, and I'm grateful to be part of it and part of this amazing team. And with that, I bet that many of you are wishing that you had been at the seminar this weekend and wish that you had expanded with the master new advanced AccuGraph users. And there are many of you who probably want to learn more. And I'm going to let Adrienne tell you where you can do that.
Okay. Hey, first of all, Kimberly, thank you for putting together all of that information and making it so accessible in such a short period of time. Couple of things I wanted to share. So take-home tips for those that just got hit with a fire hose of stuff where you touched on so many different things. Some take-home tips that I took out of this. Number one is if you use the divergent channel treatment in AccuGraph, it's a three-dimensional balancing, and it's as simple as tonify the red ones, sedate the blue ones. Whether you do that with laser or ion pumping cords or electric or needle or whatever you're going to do, tonify the red, sedate the blue, and see what kind of results you get. So that's point number one. Point number two, I liked what you talked about, the energy vortexes, and then also the Da Qi sensation, and being able to feel that. For those that are energy sensitive, which I know you are, and I've seen you be able to do amazing things, just pointing and saying, oh, yeah, it's right there. There's the point. And you can always just feel it. So it's really cool for those that have that gift. For those that don't, well, there's some technology that kind of helps to compensate for that. And then the third point I wanted to make is you've really lowered the worldwide definition of genius, if you're calling me one, but thank you. That's very kind. Now, for those who are interested in learning more about technology and practice, hearing from Jake live, I saw people asking, was Jake's seminar recorded? Can I buy the recordings, etc.? Unfortunately, no, it was Jake's seminar. That's up to him, and it was not. But we have a great opportunity coming up in May for everybody. In fact, I'll put that up right now. It should be on the, yeah, there you go. It should be showing up on your screen. We have our Acupuncture Technology Symposium coming up in Maryland, May 4th through 6th. And we have not only Jake teaching, but Kimberly's teaching, I'm teaching. We've got also Deb Davies coming. And we're very excited because we're going to go over all of the cool things you can do with technology in your practice, including some things that we have never taught or shown anywhere. Kimberly's been working on a big secret project, and she's treated me, and I'm really excited for what she's going to be teaching there. So for those that have not looked at it yet, there's a link over there. Whoops, probably that side of your screen. Check it out. We do still have early bird pricing, but it ends Tuesday. February 28th is the last day you can get the early bird pricing. So if you think you're interested, jump over there and check out the details. We still have some seats available. We would love to have folks. So that's what I had. Kimberly, go ahead.
So lots of people, this is a really big webinar, and there are a lot of non-AccuGraph owners. And I just wanted to share that if there are any practitioners in Canada, I will be in Vancouver at the end of March at the Infertility Symposium. I'll have AccuGraph with me. I'll be doing demos, and I'll have lots of other things with me. And if any of our practitioners are in that area, that would be a great time to come and see me. And if anybody wants, I mean, you should always come see me if I'm in town. We might go shopping together.
And so the Integrative Fertility Symposium, Vancouver, and that's March 31st and April 1st, right?
Correct.
Okay, very cool. One last thing, 1 second here.
Oh.
Here we go.
Oh boy.
Yeah, sorry. Everybody, it's Kimberly's birthday. It's number 50. You don't have to sing, but we got her a giant black balloon. I think that's the size
Black
of me.
balloon.
And we are very proud of her, very impressed. I hope you'll all join me in wishing Kimberly a happy birthday and thanking her for spending her birthday with all of us doing this today. So thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. What a fun day.
Blow out your candle, make a wish.
Okay, ready? Thank you. I have really enjoyed putting this webinar together. One of the best things, I get paid to learn, and I wouldn't be happy to be a stagnant acupuncturist, and AccuGraph allows all of us to progress and excel and move to the next level. And I think that the ancient practitioners of old 4,000 years ago would be really impressed with how things have moved forward in the world of acupuncture today. And
we have some questions here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and you can't take, when you're, as we move forward in the future and you're looking at the key players, like Jake has studied the key players that have progressed the medicine as far as Japanese style, and he taught a lot about that over the weekend, how they progressed along the way. I think there's going to come a time when somebody down the line is going to be teaching on how the medicine has progressed, and Jake Fratkin is going to be on their list, and Adrian Larson is going to be on their list. Maybe somebody will say, and that Kimberly Thompson, she taught a lot about what they do, but it's pretty impressive. So we've got a few questions here. Adrian, will you answer the question from Sarah about tonifying red, sedating blue?
Yeah. The color that is shown in AccuGraph when the point is red, not on the graph. Forget the graph. No graph.
Do you want me to bring up my screen?
No, that's okay. In the treatment plan window, okay, not the graph, but treatment plan, it is telling you how to treat. So if the name of the point is red, it means tonify it. It is a treatment. So forget graph stuff, and then it all makes sense. Red means please tonify me, and blue means please sedate me, and that's why. So hopefully, to answer your question, Sarah, you're not tonifying excess. It's asking for tonification. That's why it's red. And then Jim, if one is not an AccuGraph user, will it still be of benefit to come to the symposium in Maryland? Yes. We are covering all facets of technology, not merely AccuGraph. AccuGraph's a part of it, it's not really even the major part of it. We have all sorts of other things, including non-needle treatment, ways that you can, integrate technology into your practice, even if you're not using AccuGraph. So it will definitely be worth your while. Anna says, was the webinar recorded? It was recorded. And does the symposium offer CE credits? Yes, the CE credits are in process right now. They have not been verified, and so we can't say, yes, we have CE credits. We can tell you that we fully expect to. We've always had them in the past. I don't see any problem, but they are in process, not only with NCC AOM, but also Florida and California. So all three we are hoping to be able to offer CE credits there, and we will know shortly.
I'll answer Janet's question. What are the indications for using the new extraordinary channels? That was my big question. And when I asked that question to Jake, I said, where can I read about that? He said, yes, go read about that. So the answer is, I have not done, I haven't had a lot of time to go and read and come up with a fantastic list where, you can say the Ren channel does this and the Do channel does this. What these these new extraordinary channels do, they tie together all of the other extraordinary channels. They bring the body together. They include the missing links. So oftentimes they're coupled with one of the older extraordinary channel pieces. So I am told that when I start reading the book Chasing the Dragon's Tail, that I will learn more about that. And so that's where to go to find more information.
Cool. And then for those that have asked about how to access this webinar later, it has been recorded and it will be available in your in the webinar section of your AccuGraph account for those that are AccuGraph users. For those who are not, I don't have the answer to that question. I'll find out momentarily here. Jim says, back to CE credits. How many hours do you anticipate a practitioner can earn? We're aiming for 20, Jim. Thanks. Good question. We're aiming for 20 credits there. And I would expect it might land at 18, but somewhere in that neighborhood, 18 to 20. And bear with me one second. I'll find out if the recording of this webinar will be available for those who don't use AccuGraph. Be right back. Kimberly, tap dance.
Okay. I have a feeling that the way that will work is that you'll receive an email. And if you were signed up for the webinar, then you'll get an email of the recording afterwards. The recording of this webinar will be sent out. Yep. Cameron just answered the question and I guessed right.
Nice going. Okay, well, thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
We didn't talk about my boots.
Oh my goodness! If you go to one of these trips, if you go to Vancouver with Kimberly, she spends the evening shopping, and so
exactly. This was my fantastic. Not only did I get all those great tidbits, but I got these awesome boots in Boulder, Colorado, 80% off. Anyway, Steve Madden's 80% off. At one of the last time we did the Noget seminar, I had a practitioner come up to me who's been watching me go to all these shows and buy shoes and get whatever. You'll hear it in my blog post. He says to me, Kimberly, I'm guessing my boots are cooler than your boots today. I'm like, really? Show me your boots. And he pulled up his pant legs and he had these awesome cowboy boots from Texas and they had the yin yang sign in leather right engraved into them. And I was like, so I'm on a mission to find those boots.
Yeah, you had a picture of that up.
I did. So these are my new ones and I'm going to wear them for my birthday.
All righty. Hey, thanks everybody. It was really great to have such a good turnout. This was a huge turnout for our webinar. One thing I want to say in closing, Kimberly looks so amazing and she's such a genius and she's got it together. There, I use genius on you. She's got it together. She's got a successful practice. She does all this cool stuff. I want you to realize she's just like you. She went to acupuncture school. She went out there, started trying, started learning, and this is stuff you can do. So don't ever get the notion in your head that that this is beyond you, because it's not. Everybody can do this work. Everybody can make a difference in the lives of people. And if we can help you do that, then our mission is successful. So thanks, everybody. Kimberly, anything else?
That's it. Have a great day.
All right. Bye, everyone.